fans. I'm Marcy Bullock. I am your host for Engineering Pack Pod. And today we have the man, the myth, the organizational legend, Dan Black. And I can't even do your intro justice. I know you've been really proof that talent strategy is an art and a science, and you have shaped leaders across the globe. It's so good to see you, my friend. Welcome, welcome.
It is great to be here. Thank you for the invite. Hello, Pack. It's so great to I've visited so many times. It's good to be talking to the group back again. So thanks for having me.
Yes, we are talking to you virtually today. Tell us where you are and what's going on with you today.
Sure. So I'm based right now. I'm sitting in our lovely New York City headquarters, which is in Hudson Yards in Manhattan, and coming to you from my fairly new role. I lead now global talent strategy for EY, the firm formerly known as Ernst and Young. And for the bulk of my career, for those of you I have not met, has been in talent and recruitment, so talent attraction, talent acquisition. I did that for, gosh, 25 years or so. And then a couple years back, decided to make a change, and there was an opportunity here to think more broadly about, okay, once you come here, what is it that keeps you here? What is it that makes it an exceptional experience and helps you be the best you. So that's what this talent strategy role is thinking about. Marcy, think about it. What are those big rocks that large organizations want to move up a hill so that at the top people can say, "Oh yeah, that's why I joined. That's why I stay. That's why I'm here." So that's what I spend all of my time thinking about and working on.
That makes so much sense because you started, like you said, in recruitment and
Yeah,
acquisition, which is getting people to sign on the dotted line and
correct.
start. But now you're in strategy. And actually, you answered the next question I had, but can you elaborate a little
Sure,
bit about this whole concept of talent strategy and what makes people stay? I'm curious about that, about retention and
sure.
motivators for employees, and also what makes them leave.
Yeah. So I would say it's a few different things, and what I think there's a fairly common misconception that there's mystery or a lot of mystery. It's enshrouded in this cloud of like, oh, what is it people want? For the most part, most companies know what people want. And look, people is not a monolith, right? So everyone has different levers, different priorities that they have when it comes to their experience, their expectations from an employer. But by and large, there are a few things that organizations know that they'd like to do. The problem is that it's hard to do them. And it's especially hard to do them at scale. Let me give you a couple of examples. I know most people I work with, whether they are fresh out of university, fresh grads from NC State, or all the way out to senior partners, they want to have some license in how they manage their own careers, some say, some flexibility, right? That just makes sense. Who among us wants to be told exactly what to do and how and when and where? Nobody, right? So that kind of career flexibility, or the way we call it career agility, that's a big one. Now, bringing that to life for some 400,000 people in 140 countries at EY, not easy, but knowing what it is, we know that's something that everybody wants. Another one. Um, Thrive Time is something we introduced as one of our components of our employee value proposition. It makes total sense. I don't think anyone would argue, like, gosh, if you want to be a better anything, consultant, accountant, banker, a doctor, you name it, you need the time to develop those skills. Reading, learning, hands-on experience, time to get back and just meditate for a little while and get out of the thick of things. If you don't have that time, because your inbox is always calling, or it's meeting after meeting after meeting, or kind of the day to day is a grind, you can't get that time to do those things. How are you supposed to develop? So again, everyone knows this is something that makes sense to offer to employees. Offering it is a whole different ballgame. Especially for organizations, for example, that have a kind of a service orientation. If, like we do, you make your money by providing good service to clients. And providing that service means working with and on that client on a near regular basis. How do you then say, well, I know that's how we make money, but let's take some time to do this other stuff? The issue, of course, is if you don't do it, you're not going to have the best foot forward to your clients, the best employees, et cetera. So that's how I kind of look at strategy, Marcy. It's not typically rocket science, but the difficulty is, can you consistently implement things at scale that will help your employees, whether you have five of them or 500,000 of them, actualize and realize their potential in a way that's meaningful to them.
So you said so much in that. I think you said 400,000
Correct.
employees. Did I get
Yes.
that right?
Oh, yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay. And you're in charge of 400,000 employees. Okay, I'm just letting that marinate. And you
Well,
said
it's funny because when they first asked me if I was interested in this, so this is a new role that we created a couple of years ago, and they said, and I said, well, so let me get this right. Is my remit to make sure that kind of nearly 500,000 people are getting the experience that they expected when they signed on the line? They said, yeah, that's right. And I said, well, okay, what will I do on Tuesday? That's Monday. That's a Monday thing, right? So yeah, so it's a big piece of work.
that's amazing. 140 countries as well,
Yeah,
which I'm
yeah,
so interested to hear because I work a lot with graduate students in the College of Engineering. And what we're going to
sure.
do this year is get a world map. And this was a suggestion from the
Hmm.
students of my last cohort in smooth sailing. They said, we want to put pins in. Every single person will put a pin where they're from. And it's going to be so interesting to
Yeah.
see how diverse and all over
Oh yeah.
people are and
Yeah.
what they bring from that. I would love you to talk a little bit about the international component and how that plays into your talent strategy.
Yeah, so it is as you might imagine, it is a huge component. We are very firm believers that to provide the best service to your clients and the best environment to your people, to your teams, that has to include bringing people from all kinds of different walks of life, backgrounds, cultures, religion, like you name it. So when you talk about inclusiveness, we want to include at the end of the day lots of different points of view, right? And lenses, and that by design and by definition means people that grew up in different ways in different places under different times, right? So we talk about generational differences all the time. I like to talk about generational similarities, right? Like, hey, there's lots of different people that want to do great things for their clients. It doesn't matter whether you're 25 or 55, right? So part of our strategy, and we do have a globally connected talent attraction strategy and a global talent strategy, which is let's find the best talent wherever it is. And let's bring that to bear in a way that's meaningful for them. And so let me just share two quick things on how that works in like practical terms. Number one, we do spend a lot of time making sure that people who have a real interest in a specific part of our organization, whether that's a specific location or service line, et cetera, that they have the opportunity to do just that. Now, as you are probably aware, in lots of places, I'm based in the US, but in lots of places, it's difficult sometimes for someone that's not from that place to work in that place, right? This is not a US phenomenon. This is happening everywhere. And so, how do you make sure that people can get the experience and the exposure to other parts of the world, to other cultures? For us, that's we have a huge mobility program. So if maybe right out of school, you're from country A, but you want to work in country B, and that's not in the cards. What we do is, okay, once you've been with us for a couple of years, can we do a secondment? Can we do a 2-month rotation? So at any given time, we typically have about 2,000 people that are somewhere else in the world that's not where they're from, experiencing a formal mobility assignment. So that's number one. I think the second thing, which is really important, Marcy, is the ability to bring people together doesn't always mean physical together, right? So I do run around the world and have meetings, but I also am regularly connecting with people across the world via video and Teams and other collaborative tools that we use. And it is, all of my work is that much richer because look, you know this. We said this, right? We got on this call. When the technology is not working, when the setup or with the background, or when the tabletop that you're sitting at falls off onto your lap, as it just happened to you 5 minutes ago, um, you can't really do your best work when those things are not clicking. Kind of the table stakes, the expectations, and large organizations, EY is no exception, spends a lot of time making sure that that ecosystem that allows you to just forget about that and focus in on the differences and the culture on the background and that that's so important. And it's something that I've been at the firm for over 3 decades that thankfully the firm continues to get right a lot of the time, and you see that play out in the day to day of your work.
3 decades at the
Yeah,
firm.
yeah.
What has made you stay?
I have an answer to that because, and it's one that I have thought about long and hard because every decade that passes, I get asked like, oh, how are you still there? I would say really quickly, number one, I felt this the day one when I was recruited right out of university to be an auditor, many moons ago till today. It is a meritocracy. I don't get anything I get here because of who my dad was. He was a welder, by the way. He was not in business, right? Or because of who I know, or because of whose elbows I rub. You get what you get here when you because of what you put in, and whether that's your effort, that's your knowledge, that's your background, that's your teamwork, et cetera. So that meritocracy concept. I think secondly, for an organization that's as big as we are and complex as we are, the ability for EY to grow with me has been really impressive. So when I joined, I was a single accounting major with aspirations to be a kind of financial analyst at some point. Today, I am a married father of two that loves the talent space, and has a mortgage and all these. So as my life has changed, EY has grown with me and offered me new opportunities, not just to accommodate who I am outside of work, but to complement who I am outside of work. And that, I have to say, that's really cool to have a big organization that says, "Oh, no, no, no. We want to know, Dan, what helps to make you tick? Because if you're a happier person, you're going to be a better working person and everybody wins." And then I would just say the last thing is that consistently over and over and over again for the span of my 30 plus years here, EY does the right thing. And now that sounds simple, but we have a core set of values that we live by. And yes, sometimes things happen and I'm like, oh, how could that be allowed to happen? And consistently and without fail, EY stands by its values and gets to that right answer um, time after time. And to be at a big organization that has a great reputation like ours, but to also feel like, no, but it's also a place that cares and cares about doing things right and cares about its people. That's a combination you don't see very frequently in lots of organizations our size.
I appreciate what you just shared, and it is so important to match your values with the organization. That really
Oh,
keeps you energized and you have a purpose and you
yes.
feel respected. So you talked about, I want to go into the personal for a
Yeah,
minute. You said
sure.
father of two.
Yeah.
And of course, many of our listeners are students. They may
Yes.
be currently undergrads or grad students.
Hmm.
They may be newly entering the workforce, just
Yeah.
trying to figure it all
Oh,
out. And I
gosh.
always tell them, nobody knows what they're doing. You're not alone.
No.
But I want to give you a moment here to drop some nuggets. And if you were even
Sure.
talking to your own kids, and I
Yeah.
can't remember if they're college or graduates, but also if you're talking to a college student.
Sure. And I have one of each. I have a recent college grad and I have a college freshman. So I would say, a few things. What I think you said it best right there, which is like, despite what you see on the pretty veneer on people's LinkedIn profiles or their bios or what have you, these speakers that come and talk to you on campus, we don't have it figured out. Like we are, and especially in this age of AI and change, like we are all scrambling to figure it out. And there's that axiom, fake it till you make it. There's some truth in that for a lot, even senior people that seem to have it all put together. So number one, I would say give yourself some forgiveness. Give yourself a little latitude here. The fact that you didn't land that internship that you really wanted, or you're not sure exactly what you want to do, or compared to other people, maybe you feel like you haven't figured, you're fine. You're going to be okay, right? The fact that you're there, you're at NC State, you like you have a lot more figured out than you think. Um, I would say make sure that so back in the day when you used to use like old cameras as SLRs, which are making a comeback now, there's the aperture, like how much you zoom in. This is true of the iPhone too, or whatever phone you use, right? Your that you use the camera, how wide you zoom out or how tight you zoom in makes a huge difference on your point of view, and it is the exact same thing for your career. So many students that I meet have set these goals. By the way, goals are very good. The goals are excellent, but set these goals like I want to work for this company in this location doing this role for these number of years, right? And they have a very specific kind of goal in mind, at least for the next year or two or three. What I would say is okay to have a goal, but make sure that it's not so narrow that you're not missing things that are kind of in your periphery. I mean, for heaven's sake, I was an accounting major and I actually liked auditing. I did it for a couple of years. I was in financial service. I loved it. When someone tapped me on the shoulder and said, you know what, you'd be a good recruiter. I'm like, what? I hadn't even considered that, right? And if someone hadn't tapped me on the shoulder, I would never have gotten into this profession, this career that I absolutely love. So that I always tell my kids like, hey, just give yourself a little bit of a wider berth to see what else is out there. And the third thing, you said it already, which I'm so glad you did. Looking for a match, a cultural match, is so much more important than a role match or a function match or a salary match, right? So I got very lucky that when I was interviewing back in the day, when I was an undergraduate, I was fortunate I had offers from a few different organizations, but the reason I went with EY is like I just feel like their values match mine. They appreciate me for who I am, not who I need to be the minute I kind of walk in the door and leave Dan outside, right? And I was fortunate that that came out to be true. That's the reason I'm here for so long. But look at those organizations. Think about what who you are to your core. And then you can build roles and tasks and trajectories and career ladders around that. What you can't do is go to a company because it's, oh God, that's the exact kind of position I want. And once you get there, you realize this is toxic. Or even if it's not toxic, it's just not me. It doesn't matter how much you love the individual job you're in. If you don't love or don't feel comfortable in that environment, you're just not going to be successful, happy, or both.
And I'm going back to a word you used earlier, which was agility. And I'm
Yes.
hearing it again with that
Yes.
tap on the shoulder where you were kind of like, I'm an auditor, and then you switch directions, kind of the whole serendipity. So I
Yes.
love that you have, and I want to bold, underline, italics, that whole idea that you do not have to have it all figured
No.
out when
God,
you
no.
are a young person. And even when I sit next to someone on an airplane today and they say, what do you do? Oh, I'm a career coach. Can you help me figure out what to do with my life? It doesn't matter what decade they're in.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I wonder what tips you would have for a person who really is thinking, like you said, comparison. Everybody knows they're pre-med or pre-law or whatever. I'm
Yeah.
not sure. What would you say to them?
I would say continue, this is the time to explore, right? And unfortunately, and look, I've seen this up close and personal since I was heading up early careers recruiting. There is this pressure to do and know and understand so early, like, well, if you don't know where you're interning by the time your second semester freshman year, you're out of luck, right? And I understand that pressure. I see it every single day. I watch my kid, my son go through that, and I said, look, having an internship, great. Having it figured out, having your path laid out, and feeling comfortable that you're kind of in the place you want to be does feel great. However, especially now with longevity and everything else, you're going to be working for the better part of 30, 40 years, right? Those first couple of years, as angsty as it feels that you don't have it figured out or you didn't get that thing you really wanted or you're not 100% sure, this is the time to do that exploration to kind of understand what your options might be. So I tell people, and I told my own kids this, try different things. Go to that club that, well, I don't know that I don't know much about it, but I'm going to go and check it out, or take that course, if you have the wherewithal in your syllabus to take a course that's just a little bit off the beaten path. Those kinds of experiences and that exposure when you're not on academic autopilot gives you a chance to see and do other things. Now, one caveat I will say, and there's a professor, former NYU professor called Scott Galloway. I think he still teaches actually. He always talks about, he says, don't listen when people say just follow your passion, because those are people that are already successful, right? Now, I agree. It's great to be passionate about something, but you have to marry that or couple that with a competency, right? The reason I love what I do is not just because I'm passionate about talent or people or HR, which I am. It's also because I'm kind of good at it. And when you could do something that you like to do, but also that you're good at, that's the kismet, because that's a career. That's you'll get compensated the way you want to, et cetera. If you only have one of them, you're good at it, but you don't love it, or you love it, but you're not good at it. That is not that's not a successful trajectory. So I always tell people you want to do that exploration to find what you're passionate about and then see, okay, I'm passionate about this, but am I good at it? Or if you're good at something, am I passionate? Ask those two questions, kind of in parallel, because that makes for a really successful career for individuals. Yeah.
Now, I'm going to ask you a question that I get so many times from
Sure.
students, and I don't love this question, but
Okay.
I am forced to get your opinion on it
Sure.
because this is the anxiety of, what do I do to stand out, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
everybody's coming in, they got picked for a great university, and it's
Hmm.
like now they're putting their hand up again, pick me for the internship, pick
Yeah,
me for the job.
yeah.
I'm gonna say it like this. If you had to pick three qualities, skills,
Yeah.
or competencies, and this
Hmm.
can be across an organization,
Sure.
although keeping in mind these are STEM people,
Yeah.
what would the top three that when you interview someone for an entry level role kind of makes you pause and say, ooh,
Sure.
this person has potential?
Is the goods. Yeah, yeah. I'm going to take one or two off the table because they are table stakes. If I'm coming to NC State, number one, and I'm interviewing you, any one of your students, I know already that they are smart. I don't need you to prove it. I don't need you to spend time on the interview. I know you're smart. You got it. I also know that you have had a successful academic career up to this point. Otherwise, you would not be there, right? So there's a few things that I think. So I guess kind of my answer number one is um, know what are the table stakes and what people are already know, or your interviewer or the employer you're talking to already knows, and focus on something else. Because remember, that's not a differentiator. If I know that's the reason why companies go and recruit there, right? They know they're getting a great quote unquote quality product of a student that is smart and knows what they're doing and knows their discipline, whether it's engineering or computer science or whatever the case may be, right? So know that going in. Um, Communications, absolutely critical, right? So being able to articulate who you are, what you're interested in, what you can do. And look, I know communication skills gets tagged and highlighted by lots of people like, oh, and the kids these days. And I'm like, no, 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 no. All I want someone to be able to do is articulate in their way, in their words, what they can do, what they can bring, what they're excited about. Because once you start working here, and you have to go into the interview like, okay, what is it going to look like once I get there? You're going to need to talk to other people on your team and talk to your supervisor, and sooner than you think, talk to your subordinates, talk to your clients. All of that and when I say talking, whether that's typing, talking in person, or online, etc. um, it doesn't matter what you know or what you're capable of if you can't articulate that to another person. So that is and that comes through in the interview. Marcia, you've seen this. I mean, gosh, in your body of work, you know how important this is. But I'm finding more and more as I go out, because I'm still very much regularly in touch with students, that the ones that can do that, that can present who they are, using that word with a lowercase p, in a way that's compelling and engaging, have a huge advantage right out of the gate. Right out of the gate. Um, Growth mindset is another big favorite of mine. I have two more. I'm sorry. I think I'm going into four. But so growth mindset is not about what you know today or right now. It's what you can know. It's what you can do. Right. And you can tell after, at least I can, within 10 or 15 minutes, whether someone has that kind of outlook. Because I'll ask a question about, okay, here's what you studied, but what if we need you to do something else? And there's some panic, and some say, oh, I'd love to try something new, and here's how I did that in this club or at this class in my university. So more and more, and especially with the rate of change today, the not only interest but the capability to pivot and do different things and learn and try different things is huge. And then the last thing I would say, and it's not last, it's just last because it's the last thing I'm mentioning, but it's certainly not last in the order of things, is that emotional intelligence, the ability to read and understand the room, the individual, other people. There is so much angst in this world for lots of different reasons, and that does not stop. You don't leave that out on the sidewalk when you enter into your office. And so being able to understand what people are feeling, what they're going through, their motivations, their perspectives, is critical. So when I look at people that have been super successful from start to finish, I've had the opportunity to watch people right out of the gate that I hired as interns that are now managing partners and watching their career. It's been fantastic. It's been wonderful to watch. The ones that can empathize, sympathize, understand, take themselves out of the task at hand to understand what other things are at play in this person's life, they are the most successful. And if you can showcase that early on in your interviews or your career exploration, gosh, it's just going to serve you well, and regardless of what industry you go into.
Okay, so I heard communication, growth
Hmm.
mindset,
Hmm.
and emotional
Emotional
intelligence,
intelligence.
which
Yes.
overlays the empathy.
Yeah.
That is really, really helpful. All right, so we are at our last question. This
Okay.
zoomed by today. So we're going to get in the time machine now. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, so we are going to, right now it's 2026, and this is going to
Okay.
air in 2026. We're going to zoom into 2046. So
Ooh.
we are actually going to move into 2 decades from now. You're going to
Okay.
hop out of the time machine and you
Yeah.
see yourself in the
Wow.
future. I know it's kind of one of these, wait, what's happening?
Yeah.
What would Dan Black of 2046 say to you, Dan Black of 2026? And by that, what I mean is, what do you need to hear today from your future self?
Ooh. Yeah. That's wow, that's a really good question. I'm glad you didn't tell me ahead of time because I'm going to tell you the first thing that popped into my mind, which is stay true to who you are, regardless of where you are. And I will tell you this because I'm raise my hand, guilty as charged. There are times that you're in the flow of work, in the flow of life, in the flow of the social component of your life, where you are so into it, and something, that is, I don't want to say bad, but something didn't turn out the way that you, or isn't turning out the way you thought to, in any facets of your life, and you get so into it, so sucked into that. And this is true of most people I know. It's a rare quality to not succumb to this. That impacts everything else in your life. You had a bad day at work, you carry it home. Something, you had a death in the family, that's going to impact how you show up at work or at church or in your community. And what I try to do, and I'm not always successful at it, is I was put on this earth, I'm convinced, to help other people. I do it in my work, I do it at home, I do it in my family, I do it in my community. And when I am kind of beset by or preoccupied by something that is not going well or a downturn or a negative, what have you, if I'm in that space, I am of no use to anyone else. Right. So that's what 2046 tells 2026, Dan. You have a good compass, right? Which is have a service attitude, be helpful to other people. But when you inevitably meet a roadblock or a downturn or a switch in the road, don't let that affect who you are trying to be as a human. And look, I try to remind myself as often as I can, but I think that happens to all of us. So to all of you, the pack out there, know that you're going to have those days. You're going to get a no. You're going to get a negative. You're going to have something that I wish didn't happen that way. Don't let that change who you are trying to be on this earth towards other people and in your life more broadly. Because when we do it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel when you're right in the middle of it. So that's the darkest point. But strain to see that because it makes a real difference in how you get yourself out of and onto the next thing.
Sage words, my friend. Thank you so much for being here today. Audience, let's give it up for Dan Black. Thank you, friend.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Great to see you all today.